we hope everyone will stay safe and join us in that effort.
Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you.
All right. LT,
Thanks,
I
John.
wanted to get an update if we could about the OHAP, and I know that you had talked about looking for another facility and maybe the global dorm kind of being shut down.
Yeah, so give you first an update. Yesterday, I had a good opportunity to speak with over 20 members of the Guam Homeless Coalition. And in that meeting, we were talking about transportation and a new partnership the Guam Homeless Coalition is about to undertake with GRTA on providing access to transportation services for the homeless population. So we talked about that. We also talked about some verifications. There's some issues coming up with the social service providers about transient people that are unable to get a certification from a specific mayor because they're either squatting on property or they're being transient in multiple villages. And so that's something that's come up that we're looking at. And then the third thing with Global Dorm, and in the meeting that I had, maybe yesterday, with Sarah, she's out there working with GSA, looking for different options, and trying to refresh what the approach is going to be. All along, we've been looking for one building, and we might be into a situation. We have to work with our private sector partner in the Catholic Social Services and figure out how we would adjust. But it looks like we might have to move into multiple areas. And it might be smaller buildings, but more refined. And of course, the pressure's on to try and stabilize families and push them into transitional homes. So that is an active issue, along with, and this wasn't discussed yesterday, but I'll just let you know, I can't release the details yet. But there is a situation at Child Protective Services in terms of their ability to manage complaints. And I would say that in the next day or two, you're going to see some executive action from us pushing in additional resources on CPS. I mentioned that with the homeless because it started off for me in really examining the situation with welfare benefits and CPS back in July. And it really was after a meeting I had with the Homeless Coalition, and they were talking about how internally CPS has been categorizing children and their risk level, and how unsheltered children were not pushed into the child welfare system automatically. And there's a lot of there's some differences in opinions, but for me and the governor, an unsheltered child out there is at risk and in danger. And I don't agree with that policy that had been in place, I guess, for years. Right. So I'll just say, Chris, that maybe by tomorrow morning, our team is working on the strategy and an action to push in additional resources into CPS. And I feel that that's going to be a critical thing, especially with the kids returning to school. Right. Most CPS cases, or maybe I shouldn't say most, but a large number are referrals from teachers, right? And from schools. And we're not seeing those referrals right now because the teachers are not having access to the kids. Right. So I think that we need to be a bit more proactive. We need to switch it up. We need to be in a position where we are responding very fast to complaints and incidents of child abuse.
It's got to be it's got to be a balancing act, though. I'm pretty sure, Lieutenant Governor, because you don't want to just tear these kids away from their family because their families become homeless. So I don't know, what are some of the options? Obviously, you would want to house the whole family, right?
So for sure, one option, right, for us has been sheltering the families. That's why sheltering families has been a priority. And when there are parents that are that have fallen down on their luck and have no options, our first response will be to make sure they provide the safety for their kids. If parents are exposing their kids to sex offenders, to dangerous people out there, then that's a different story. And that's where we have to go in and put the interests of the kids up. In examining the CPS issue and just understanding more of the length of time it's been taking for adoptions to be approved, the financial disincentives for foster parents to actually adopt children because they lose support. Those are all things I think in policy that we have to look at. And I started dialoguing with Speaker Chalahi and Senator Shelton last week about the situation at CPS, and I guess I'll leave the details to when they're finally hashed out. But I'll just tell you that CPS is one area that requires our time and attention and additional resources. And we're developing a strategy right now to get that done and to bring them up. I believe that they are delayed in their work investigating, doing home visitations, all the areas that are critical to make sure that children are safeguarded. And so that's where you're going to see, I think, some action from us.
Right, that's definitely good news. LT, I just got to ask you for a comment on this. Frankie Rosalin hired at the port. If you could, I know you follow the news. It's kind of snowballed a lot since last week. So just, I guess, officially for the record, what would your comment be on that?
So I hope you can give me a few minutes on this one.
Please.
This actually is my first opportunity to really I'm glad it's not really a news interview, because this interview gives me an opportunity to maybe say things that I've been wanting to talk about, and maybe this is the right opportunity. First off, I did not have a role in the hiring. And if you know our family, I've never even had a conversation with Frankie about his case. The only things I've ever talked to him about is expressing some sorrow for what it's done to the family, and then relief when it was done. But Frankie's case, he was convicted of misdemeanor official misconduct. And the bottom line for his crime was he received a text message from a phone from an inmate. He did not respond to the text message, but he did not also report it, which was a violation of his duty as a corrections officer, and he's paid the price for it. But in connection with that, then there was my sister's arrest. And as you might recall, my sister was arrested the day before we filed for office in 2017. And only now details are coming out on that arrest. I've met with federal authorities last year about this and the details, informing me about the details. And I'm happy at least that Johnny Rosario over at Candid News, who is the complainant. I'm not sure if you know this, Chris, but Johnny Rosario was the complainant on my sister's case. She was the victim. And only recently has she revealed the facts about that statement, where she was taken by the principal investigating officer that was doing this, was in a romantic relationship with my sister before, surely conflicted from being in this case. The former chief of police was involved in the interrogation of Ms. Rosario. And Ms. Rosario has admitted to the public, and now admitting to us, all the details that prompted her to make that charge against my sister. My sister ended up having to plead to not even a misdemeanor. The case was so terrible, they did a citation. But the way that prosecutors charge cases, they're looking for wins. It's all about numbers. And I'll leave it for both Frankie's attorney, Tony Perez, and Charissa's attorney, Jackie, to get into the details. But the result of the arrest for her, my sister had a miscarriage, twins. She didn't even know she was pregnant when she was held in there at DOC. Held longer than most people, and everybody in the justice system knows she was there before the 48, but she's basically spent almost 3 nights in there for that. I mean, it has resulted in the destruction of her character, of her reputation. Same thing with Frankie. So with Frankie, he didn't talk to me about applying for a job. I didn't even know he applied for a job until he already had an interview. And at that point, I took myself for sure out of that. And he's going to have to go and compete in the merit system and figure that out. So, when the senators are talking about official misconduct, obviously he played by the rules. There's no rule that barred him. I'm not interested, and to be honest with you, I don't really want any of my personal family members or their relatives to work in the government because of this attention that they get. But I can't control that. and he went and got his job fair and square, and he's trying to rebuild his life for his 7 children. So I'll just tell you this: the operatives that were involved in in the fabrication of the company's records, it's all going to end up coming up with the federal authorities' help or without. It always will come out. Everybody, we're all adults. We'll have to stand on our own. And of course, it doesn't reflect well on me. I'm always going to get it.
Yeah.
But that's the facts, and that's how I see it. And I just want to tell the operatives out there, whatever you did out there, it's going to come out, and you're going to be held accountable.
LT, what
Sorry to.
no.
That's the first time
I'm glad. I just want to let you know I'm not an operative in any way. I'm just,
No,
yeah.
but I mean, even some of the, the media attacks, right? I mean, on her, she gets vilified, unfortunately by the station, by the Post. Yet members of the corporate family ask her for things. The owners of the Post try and get her to advocate for things, yet they vilify her. So, it's just one of those things where today was the day, I guess, that I want to be able to let loose and tell you what I think. I usually am very reserved. You know this. I'm usually very conservative. But you know what? When I see something like this, and the amount of attention and the amount of attacks, then I'm going to speak up. And in the end, no matter what, the people of Guam will have to take a look. Some people don't care. Some people care. No matter what, the judgment day for me will be on my reelection, and they'll decide whether or not they like my kind of government, my personality, my character, and whether or not all these other things that are out there would be on their side to get me out. So, that's what I have to say.
Let me just ask on.
I would rather have said this at happy hour,
Yeah. But I think you just say it publicly, and people know you've addressed it, and it kind of, in a way, it puts it to bed. You've always been smart that way. LT, but let me just ask you on its face, right? Let's take out your sister, your relationship, just on its face, hiring those who have been convicted of official misconduct back into the government of Guam. I mean, you have to agree it doesn't really hold up. So where do you stand on that? Because I understand there's two sides, right? People have paid their debt to society. I get that part of it. But then there's also, we live in this environment where, I mean, there's corruption out there. And I feel like we kind of need to send a stronger statement. So just, I guess, on its face, what do you make of that?
I guess on its face, for people charged with official misconduct, I guess it will be the policy of the legislature. If they want to pass that as an exclusion, barring people from employment, and it gets the public support, then it's the law and we abide by the law. But you're right, there's a balance. We're supposed to try and recover people's lives. We don't throw people away when they make mistakes. Now, whether or not they should be entitled to apply for a government job, being a public servant, surely that is something that the policymakers will have to determine. Should it have been done? Right now, he followed the rules and he got selected by a classified panel, then yes. But, there should be scrutiny across the board. I mean, I think the sponsor of the legislation hired felons during her time. So is it okay for people to have certain felony convictions to be hired and people with the misdemeanor conviction not? Those are all different kinds of things. No matter what, I respect the will of the legislature and the policy. And there are places that can bar this for employment. It can be an exclusion. It certainly is within the right. But you have to balance this with whether or not our community is going to be invested with, by the way, the large number of people that have been in the criminal justice system. We have a high percentage of people that have been in trouble here in Guam. And if everybody is going to, be out there, thrown away, it results in pretty bad social situation. But I think that people should be apply for jobs. They win it fair and square. They have to adjust for what they have to take account, live with what they have. I mean, the reputations, Frankie, and the scrutiny he's getting is way more now, especially because he's the boyfriend of my sister. I'm sure he blames me, actually. And I'll honestly tell you, I'm blamed for that. Why that he wouldn't have gotten in that mess had he not been affiliated with me. That's And that's honestly how he feels, and it's a pressure inside our family. I'll tell you that it's an issue.
Well, how about that public auditor audit?
Oh, with the double pay and the differential pay.
If we could just get
Oh,
you on
by
that,
the way,
yeah.
I'll just say this. You know that's my uncle, right? So I have to say, BJ does his work no matter who is in office. Um, he doesn't. In fact, if you're related to him, he puts more scrutiny on you because he expects more. I just want to say that as an aside because he's the auditor. But with regards to the pay, clearly the differential pay was developed, or that specialty pay was developed because of the risk that people were taking to go to work at that period of time at the early part. And whether the CCU, I guess, went and did a double pay policy, the government of Guam, not everything was closed, so they weren't legally entitled to that double pay. It's very complicated. There's a lawsuit about double pay from the GFT. But I would say, for me, I mean, they asked me, I didn't get differential pay. I'm very clear that both the governor and my pay are set by statute. No matter what, if we're in a pandemic or not, we're always going to be paid the same. That's about it.
Right. Okay, LT. Well, I appreciate.
All right, I got to run to Anderson.
I know, I got you. Okay, I appreciate your candor. Okay, all right, see you, Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio there in the KUM News Zoom room at 9:28. It's Wednesday, Jason.
Yep. Okay. We can do cover me real quick.